Hi everyone, it's Joseph John Kaysen, the author of The Part About the Serpent. It's May 19th, 2020, about a quarter to 3 a.m. I'm sitting on my knees in my tent, on my sleeping bag. You hear the rain coming down on the canopy. There's been some gusts of wind. We've had a lot of rain to where you've got to submerge your feet to walk out of here. But I wanted to talk about how all things work together for good to them who love God, how to be content in all situations, and wisdom in affliction. I don't always know why I'm in the predicament that I'm in at times. I'm not talking about just this predicament being in a tent. I've been like out here in it for a year. I've experienced some pretty chaotic stuff, pretty tough stuff. Here's a passages from Daniel 7:25 concerning the end times, visions that he saw. He's talking about the devil here. He says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change the times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." That's 3 years, 3.5 years. Verse 26, "But the judgment shall sit, excuse me, and they shall take away his dominion to consume it, to consume and destroy it unto the end." So the devil knows he has a short time, and he wants to wear us out. And I'm not talking about your nominal Christian. I'm talking about someone that hears the word and does it. I used to be the nominal Christian that hears the word and doesn't do it. And I was no threat to the enemy like that. And I lived in patterns. And there was no resistance. I was neutral to everyone around me. Everyone was neutral to me. Thought I had it made. Like that. It's, from a worldly perspective, that's kind of success, isn't it? So, hey, got it made here. My income is matching my outflow, and got food in the refrigerator and gas in the car, and bills are paid, bed to sleep in. But I had no life. I was 225 pounds, living in bed. I didn't want to eat any of the food that I had in the refrigerator. I couldn't. I was sick. But I thought I had it made. And then, because I was no threat to the enemy, but then becoming a doer of the word turned things upside down. And then I started experiencing hardships and had to start increasing my faith and living by faith. Predictability is a big one, because the devil works by patterns, and that's where I was. I was the guy that lived in his planner. Everybody knew where I was going to be on a Tuesday, you know. And if you look at animals in the animal kingdom, from the time they're up in the morning to the time the sun goes down, if they make it that long, everything changes. They're almost in peril at all hours, you know. They're going to get caught in a trap. They're going to fly into a car. They're going to swim over a covert creature that's going to leap up and nab them, you know, all day long. It's different. They do work in general patterns. I've got a bird feeder out here right now, and I have a Mr. and Mrs. Cardinal, they come several times a day here. This is his domain now. He sings out here, kind of sanctifying this territory as his, which is good. It's really cute because he feeds Mrs. He finds good morsels like sesame seeds or um, is it sesame seeds? Sunflower seeds. There's not many of them in the seed that I buy, just some. And he'll take one and he'll fly it over real quick to Mrs. Cardinal and feed her every now and then. It's cute to watch. But then there's a little harem of birds that follow him around, and he can't chase them all off. It's just the other birds are taking the cue from the cardinals. So they have, some pattern, but they don't know when the wind kicks up or the rain comes down. Everything's changes all the time. And, psychology teaches us, balance and predictability. That, well, you're no threat you're not living by faith like that, And I'm not just saying just have no vision and just walk the plank. Whatever happens, happens. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't always know why I'm in the predicament that I'm in. So here we've got a COVID crisis. This COVID crisis, which is different. It's, God be glorified. This is the end. Things are going to change. This is where I think things are really going to start getting chaotic. Like, I was studying with the Jehovah Witnesses, and I'm not a Jehovah Witness, but I needed people to study with. I didn't have a vehicle. They advertised the grocery store nearby for studies, and I wanted their materials. So I fellowshiped with them weekly just a couple years ago, year and a half ago or so. And the scripture where Yeshua told his disciples to go and buy them, to sell the shirt off their back and go and buy a sword. Peter said, we have two. And he said that's enough. There's two types of swords in the Bible. One is the word of God, which is an offending weapon, and one is a sword, and the sword of the day. The sword of the day back then was like a 15-inch, 16-inch dagger type thing that hung off your belt. And today it would be a Glock 9mm. So I went and bought a 9mm, and I needed a legal way to transport it. The reason why Yeshua said this, I believe, is because he saw it wasn't going to work and things were going to fall into chaos. And, well, the Jehovah Witnesses were no help in helping me get the gun back to my house. And I couldn't take it on public transportation. It's against the law. I had to do it right. I had to pay somebody to give me a ride there, but it turned into a biblical argument, and we had to part ways right there. Well, here it was. I was out here the night of Christmas, just last year, and I was assaulted by two drunk people. Ordered me out of my tent, started pulling my tent down on top of me, and I had my gun with me. I fired 2 warning shots. They wouldn't take it until I shot one of them in the abdomen. And then, of course, it was a big free-for-all from the police. I couldn't walk out of here. I'm walking with a cane. My tent was down. And, of course, they got the story from them first. And I had beacons up out here. There was a drone flying overhead trying to find me. They already knew who I was because my phone pinged in the area. They'd already gotten a warrant. And of course, well, there's a mad shooter in the woods with an unregistered handgun. He's probably on drugs or whatever. That's what they expected to find. But uh, no, I was defending myself, and he deserved it, and he almost lost his life over it. And if I wouldn't have had that gun, they probably would have put me in the hospital. And and I was without my tent for a few weeks, and my gun, and my tent was ripped open, my things broken, and no charges were ever pressed. You know, no charges were ever, no one was ever prosecuted. Well, I didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to shoot anybody, but I did. And so, and now I have more clout. You know, I know, all the police know that I have a gun. They're familiar with me now. And what I'm deliberately trying to do is not let the enemy wear me out. So last week I was in threat of having my bank account frozen because of what would be an overdraft, and on top of that would be a bounced check, and that would freeze my account. And rather than to run around frantic, knowing that I'm going to meet subtle inconvenience everywhere I go, the devil being behind it, I chose to cast my cares upon God because he careth for you. Cast all your care upon him. So I did that. But forget it, let him freeze the account. They need it worse than I do, and then they won't have me to oppress anymore, and I won't be in this situation. And then magically the door opens. I'm in a relaxed state of mind. No one's harassing me, and I was able to make the payment. And it almost happened again today. And I'm not talking about being irresponsible. I'm more diligent about paying these bills than these people are about being transparent with their clients, especially during the hours, the temporary hours that are always subject to change right now during this crisis. And I'm trying to apply wisdom to my life because wisdom preserves the life of its owner. And the only way that I've ever typically been given wisdom is through affliction, unfortunately. And I'm going back to, well, why am I in this predicament? Well, there's probably some very good reasons for it. And I'm so deep in the woods right now that it's hard for people to get back here. And here's another passage from Isaiah 33. Like I said, there was so much rain, you have to submerge your boots just to get back here today. I had to go in and deal with more banking stuff today. And I'm glad I did. It worked out. I got an extension. No stimulus check yet. Of course, it's going to be, if I ran around trying to find it, the longer it would take. Isaiah 33. He that walketh righteously, Isaiah 33:15. He that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, he that despiseth the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, shutting his eyes from seeing evil, he shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him, his water shall be sure. So the munition of rocks, crags, like King David in Jerusalem, where he had his fort, was high in the rocks. It was like impossible to get to, and they had their own covert water supply underground, dug in, because at war, that's the first thing that the enemy will go for is your water supply. They'll make it really, really, really super hard to get to, or within the energy that I have to move back and forth out of here. I do the extra work to try to stay safe. The Bible isn't saying that everything that happens to a Christian is good. And now we're talking about being content in all situations. Well, I've been in places where I couldn't dream of being in a tent out in the woods and the cedars with a bird feeder, watching the birds, getting reacquainted with nature, being healthy-minded. I've got my guitar out here, being creative. I've read so many books that since I've been out here that I can't keep track of them anymore. I use them for cutting boards. I use them to build fires. I just eat them and throw them and eat them and throw them. I used to keep track of the books that I read. I've gone through Hemingway. I've gone through Dickinson. Gone through crime, all kinds of stuff. And I'm getting into podcasts, good ones, true podcasts, true crime, nutrition, fortunately a little bit of politics. But my mind, I'm deliberately slowing down to not let the enemy wear me out. So, there was a time I got into the Alcoholics Anonymous program like 25 years ago. I had a second offense DUI, forced to go, to a counterfeit religion. And they asked me to go home and make a list of 10 things that I was grateful for, and I couldn't do it. I kind of forced maybe 3 out, and that was it. Because that's where I was. And now, today, I have to force myself to stop writing about all the things that I'm thankful for. And as Zach Poonen said, he said, "Why, we wonder why it is that God would give the devil all this time to run amok and not just wipe him out." But he says, he wants to prove a point that here the devil had everything going for him as Lucifer, was the light bearer, but he wasn't content. He wanted more. And here it is, we have Christians, homeless, living in a tent, that are instructed to be content, whether they have much or little. And that's been my objective for this last year. I don't deserve anything to begin with, and I have to remind myself that anytime I want to try to grumble. There were some times last winter that were a little difficult, where I would grumble. I'd pour scalding hot coffee in the web of my hand and in the tent when it was 6 degrees out, and I'd get dehydrated and get I would get a little bitchy, right? So I have to coach myself, and it's getting easier, especially living by faith. My faith is increasing, casting my cares upon God, because I can't change everything, and that's wisdom too. It's the difference between taking a dull axe to a tree or sharpening the axe, or applying even more wisdom is taking something valuable of yours and giving it to someone who's energetic enough to chop the tree and pay him to do it. Wisdom. And so I don't always know, if I'm progressing or not, because we grow like trees, and you don't see trees grow. It's just, well, a family will plant a tree in the backyard when the kids are little, and then they'll have a family reunion one day, and they'll go, "Wow, remember when we planted that tree? Now we can't even put our arms around it. No one ever saw it grow. It just it was just a fixture." But that's how we're likened in the Bible, is to trees. Sometimes there's seasons of drought, sometimes flooding, sometimes freezing, sometimes lightning, all kinds of different changes. But the tree remains and it grows, and hopefully, like a tree planted by rivers of water that yields its fruit in its season, um, as you'll read in Psalm 1. So here's the difference, um, and a little bit more about how precarious this situation is out here for me. As there was some meth head that came walking through here just over a month ago. He had a surgical mask on his face. He's out in the woods. He's got a backpack on. I just saw the back of him. Looked like he had a piece of visqueen wrapped around him. The temperatures were around freezing, and it was very early. And the guy offended me, and he knew it. I think he heard a stiff zipper open on my tent. So I could see who it was, but he didn't look back. And what he did is he came very close to me. I couldn't see him, but he was in hearing range. Sounded like he was making himself at home. It sounded like two people. I thought, oh man, I don't need some drunks out here. There's plenty of room around here to camp. I don't have to camp here. And it sounded like multiple conversations going on, but it was just one guy. And he went on for hours, and he was cussing and everything. And what he was doing, he was led by spirit, and he was trying to harass me subtly. He was testing, just being belligerent. I snuck out of here for 5 hours on my bike to run errands, and I came back and he was still doing it. I thought I'd just let him wear himself out. So I was in my tent at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. that evening. It was getting very cold. I didn't light my light because I didn't want him to know whether I was in the tent or not. I heard his footsteps walking by, and he was quiet when he walked by the tent, which is indicative that he was in control of his rants. And then I didn't see him again. So the next morning I went. Well, I did text one of the neighbors that walks by here to warn him that this guy was down here. I kind of wanted him to come down so we could confront the guy, ask him if he was okay or whatever, just to try to shut him up. But I saw he left all his garbage and stuff, and I packed my garbage out, so I was going to take it with me. And then before I left, I noticed he had his backpack. He climbed up in the tree and stashed it up there, so I pulled that down. I thought, oh man, he plans on coming back. So I took it out to the crossroads of the trailhead, and I planted him there to let him know I didn't want him back. And a couple people rifled through the stuff before he got a chance to get it. And I was pissed about it, so I sent a text to the neighbor sensing it was him. I said, look, I want to give this guy a chance to get his stuff, but people keep rifling through it. And then a couple days later, it was gone. And so a couple weeks went by, and then some homeless outreach people came out looking for him. I guess he was a missing person. In my text that I gave the next morning to the neighbor, said that I said I wouldn't have been surprised to find him frozen to death on my way to the creek this morning. And then the police came looking for him. It's been a month, and I had a hunch of where he was. And I went and found him. He was all stuck down in the mud, died of exposure. Looked like he didn't have a shirt on. He didn't have his shoes on either. And he walked out of here. So he wore himself out so bad, the devil using him to harass me or whatever. Methamphetamine probably getting, I don't know if he was on methamphetamines, but I haven't seen the toxicology report yet. But he was so out of his mind that he stripped down half naked in super cold weather and decided to go for a hike just before it got dark. So I figured he probably made it to 7:30, 8 o'clock, stuck down in the mud, and died right there. And it was such a stark contrast between me practicing wisdom and putting healthy things into my mind at all times, trying to, and seeing someone come out here just completely chaotic with no direction, just drifting in their mind and letting in any old garbage that will come into their mind. They were just dangerous, just dangerous. And I didn't recognize the photo they showed me when they were trying to show me if this was the guy that was out here. I only saw his backside. I did recognize his hair, his poker straight black hair. But the obituary picture, the picture they put in the newspaper, I did recognize. He was a registered sex offender. I saw him on the registry. So he was highly, highly dangerous. He had nothing going for him, no direction, and God, if he would have lived, he would have messed with me. Sir, I'm surprised he didn't come and mess with me. But that's what I've got to watch out for every time I come home from running errands. I'm like, man, is my stuff still going to be there? You know, but that's another thing I have to cast upon God. There's no guarantee that my things will be here. There's no guarantee that I won't get hit by a car. There's no guarantee that, it's kind of like the animal in the animal kingdom. From the time he gets up to the time the sun goes down, things are just, anything could happen at any time. But I do have vision. As far as my faith goes and what my job is in this world, So being in this predicament so far it's taught me to increase my faith very much. It's taught me to war and to fight. It's taught me to, it's given me a lot of solitude where I'm much more creative that way. And I can invest in my education. I read so many books, so many podcasts. I've got my guitar out here. Did I say that? And, I'm not hurting. When I was younger, I couldn't dream of something so wonderful as this. Yes, it would be better without a herniated disc and a hip injury and brain damage and double vision, blind in one eye. I could go on. But I know in hindsight, especially during this COVID crisis, that being out here is going to have its benefits. Here it is. I'm drinking creek water that's not fluoridated, and this particular water here in this Grand Traverse County is regurgitated sewage, parts per billion. And they cook it down, chemicals, add chemicals to it, and put it back into the drinking water. And the hell of it is that it's not so much that we don't have enough water, it's that it's too expensive to get rid of the flippin' sewage. So you got to understand everything that goes down the drain, you know, chopped up, regurgitated diapers, phlegm, blood, HIV, semen, toothpaste, drool, snot, hair, Drano. The parts of that all are regurgitated back into the drinking water, and they add fluoride to bromine and stuff like that. Neurotoxins. No wonder why people are. No wonder why people strip down half naked and go for a walk at freezing cold temperatures and get stuck in the mud and die. But I don't have that, so I'm detoxing physically and detoxing mentally from those stresses. And for instance, there was a family, or a soon-to-be family, or a family house of people, a dog, took an interest in trying to help me last winter, tried to come out and rescue me in a snowstorm. They couldn't find the trail anymore because it snowed so bad. The guy, he tried to come out here but broke his leg, had to be rescued. So he sends his family out here to come and get me in a snowstorm, and I'm doing better than they are. And it was traumatizing for them and me because I had to try to be nice, walk out of here with my cane with them just to appease them, have dinner with them. And they offered me a place and put the bed in the living room, where I could live indoors or whatever and have shower and laundry and kitchen. And it was so chaotic at their house that I had to make up a story and get out of there and get back here to my tent. Because mentally and physically I was doing better than they are. And I didn't even stay the first night. They already put the bed in the living room and they were ready for me to stay, and I didn't even stay for dinner. I had to go. They were just too chaotic, too unhealthy, and it's spiritual, you know. So I know that good is going to come from me being here, and like I just confirmed, it already is in my faith, in my physical and spiritual, mental health. And well, I don't want to try to put too fine of a point on anything. So I guess I'm going to cut this. And the reason why I wanted to make a recording right now is because I've been holding off on it. And I didn't want to wait for the perfect conditions, because that will never happen. I'm an author, and a published author with a book on the market, and I can attest that there's no such thing as perfect conditions for writing a book. So if you are a Christian and you are walking in God's will and doing his word rather than just hearing it, expect that you're going to meet opposition a lot. And when you start meeting it to the point that it's wearing you down and your sinews are sore and you can't get enough rest, and do the other scriptures too. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say always, and think on things that are good and healthy and of good report. and excellent and praiseworthy and admirable and honorable, things like that. Think on them. The best way to get something out of your mind is to get something new into it. And cast your cares upon God. Things get rough, you can't handle it all, it's starting to fall apart. Hey God, I trust you, I know you care for me, just please take it. And that is a surefire way to grow in faith. I want to say, you know, I'll promise you that it will work out. I can't make any promises, but God's word says those things, so take his word for it. Anyway, be blessed. I'm gonna cut this and get some heat going in the tent and some food, and hopefully tomorrow it won't be raining. I can take a nice bike ride if it's not windy and run some errands. And so be blessed, and I hope to make some more of these. Good night.